Hi, I'm Dave Russo, and welcome to this session on woodworking with kids. This is something I enjoyed doing when our children were growing up, and I've also enjoyed it now with my granddaughter Audrey. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this book that I would highly recommend to you called Woodworking for Kids, and some of the projects that are in there, the approaches that are described. It's all very simple woodworking that can be done with simple hand tools. We'll talk about those tools. And then we're going to build a first project. So let's get right to it. So here's the cover and one of the pages in this Woodworking for Kids book by Kevin McGuire. I see that this edition is still available on Amazon from some suppliers, but there's also a new edition available, which I don't have yet. But I think either of them would be a good choice. I think they tried to update the book a little bit, added some projects, and the kids are in clothes. It doesn't make it look like it's from the 80s. But anyway, on the right-hand side on the top, you'll see their recommended collection of tools, and it's a really good and pretty inexpensive set. And then I'll show you what we've got in Audrey's toolbox, which is much of that, and some of the other components that are there that I'll need for today's project. Oops. This book is full of fun project ideas, including things, toys, things that kids can play with, like the stilts on the left, the doll cradle on the right there. This board hockey set that I actually built with Tony, and I have it still sitting here in the house, and Audrey and I have played with it. Those are little wooden pegs that sit in shallow holes on the two ends, and there's some obstacles on the board that are attached, and you take turns shooting the puck with the little wooden hockey sticks to try to knock down the opponent's stick. On the right hand side, you see that little study helper that holds a book while you can write on it. And I built one of those with Tony as well, and I think he still has that. And here's the toolbox project that we're going to build today. This is a great first project because you need a place to put your tools anyway. It's fairly straightforward, and although I've got the one here that is Audrey's and lives at my house with her tools in it, so when she's here she can work on projects. I decided I would like to have one too, so this would be a good one for me to walk through the steps and build another one, and I'll just keep that one for those little projects where I just want to throw a handful of tools in it and bring it to what I'm going to do. On the page on the right, you'll see the list of materials. You need one 1x6, 8 feet long to build this project, and I'll talk about the selection of wood for these as well. And a piece of 1-inch dowel, at least 21 inches long. So those are typically sold as 48-inch pieces. I happen to have a scrap left over here in the shop that I can use for this project, so I only had to buy the 8-foot board. And then it tells you what lengths you're going to need to cut them into to make all the pieces, which are in that cut list, and what tools are going to be required. And step-by-step instructions along with pictures of these two guys in this case putting this together. And yeah, right. So here's the toolbox that I built with Audrey. She was 6 years old when we did this, so this was about a year ago. And this is the collection of tools that are hers that live in it. So I do have earmuffs, so if I have to use a power tool, it's easier, so I can put that on, and similarly some safety goggles. The nice thing about building projects with all hand tools is you seldom need the safety goggles, certainly not earmuffs. She's got her own small 10-foot tape measure, small size hammer that works well for her. Barb found this there was actually a set of Stanley tools for kids that included these couple of Phillips screwdrivers of different sizes. I in a straight blade screwdriver from an older set that I have, and these are really kind of nice. I mean, virtually everybody has a battery operated drill now, and that's fine. You can certainly show a kid how to use that. But it's kind of neat just to be able to do it with a hand tool and no power, and actually perhaps in some ways a little bit easier for young hands to manipulate to hand drill like that. Actually also found a nice folding carpenter's ruler at a garage sale that I put into her set as well. Now, so that's what she has in her toolbox. Oh, that's right, and this is actually hers too, but I'll be using this one today. So other things that we're going to need for the project today, we need a handsaw, and as they recommend in the book, you really want a fairly short handsaw for kids. And I really like these shark saw pull saws. They're easy to hold on to. They cut on the pull stroke, which makes it, I think, easier to operate rather than on the push stroke, so you're not constantly buckling the blade by binding it, because you just pull it toward you and it can't buckle when it's being pulled. You know, this one is only 12 inches long, really handy, and it cuts very quickly when they're sharp, when they're new. And if you run into a nail or something, you're going to end up having to replace the blade probably, but they work really quite well. Got my dad's old hammer here. We're going to need a couple of different sizes of finishing nails. I've got 4-penny and 6-penny nails. Obviously a pencil and a tape measure. Could have used Audrey's. And brace and bit. So we're going to be drilling 1-inch diameter holes for the dowel that makes the handle to go into the end of this box. And we're going to do that actually with brace and bit. You can find these things at garage sales all the time in really nice shape for very little money, and actually they work remarkably well. And I had to buy new bits. These are still readily available, and again, they're easier to use than you might think. It takes a little bit of help perhaps to stabilize the thing. Maybe you might, if you're working with a kid, hold the top and then have them do the cranking action. But they work remarkably well. So let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is buy the materials. And one thing I will suggest for these projects is to use select pine lumber. Pine is nice. It's a softer wood. It makes it easier for cutting, for drilling, but choose the best quality material you can find. So the select pine that I got at Menards, this 1x6, 8 feet long, costs $12 for the board. But the board is clear, straight, has no knots. They're really very nice, easy to work with. If you try to use the standard quality pine boards, they're typically going to be cupped and warped and have knots in them, and it's not going to be a very satisfying thing to work with, and might help your young woodworker get frustrated easily. So we have our board here, and I looked at the cut list, and I need 2 21-inch long pieces for the size. Those are the 2 longest pieces. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut this board at about 44 inches, a little longer than I need for those 2 cuts. I don't want to try to cut it just at 42 because I won't have enough with the thickness of the saw cut. Cut it a little longer, but I want to cut it near the middle to make it easier to handle. So I'm going to make that cut first. I'm using a technique here with these pull saws. By the way, notice it has a nice convenient cover that goes over the blades. You use them at a pretty low angle. And so I like to do this supported on scraps of 2x4 on the bench. And then I can cut it in the middle, and I don't have to worry about the board falling away on either side. So I'm going to do that here. I'm going to measure to that 44-inch mark. The first thing I'm going to do is check the squareness of the end that I'm going to start from. If that were not good and square, I would make a fresh cut there, that is. But this one is very good, and you'll typically find that with these select boards. I don't need to do anything with the end. So I'm going to measure off 44 inches. Make a pencil mark there. And then use the square to mark that line straight across the board at a 90-degree angle to the edge of the board. One useful thing to try to teach young people when they're learning to do woodworking is the idea that when you're making this cut, think about what part you're saving. Now, in this case, it doesn't matter. I'm just cutting the board in half. But when we get to the next one, we'll talk about saving the line. So I'm going to cut this. I'm also going to use a couple of clamps to hold the board down just to make life easier for myself. Clamp it there. Clamp it here. And make the cut. I like to use the knuckle of my thumb to start the saw. In this case, because it's a pull saw, it's easier to start it by pushing it a little bit. The same thing is true of a conventional Western saw. You start it by going the opposite way that it actually does significant cutting, because it will go into the wood a little bit without much difficulty. And these, as I said, are designed to be used at a pretty shallow angle, which makes it pretty easy to follow the line, just looking down at it, blowing the sawdust away periodically. And now, my cut is started all the way across the board. It's pretty easy to just continue. And you do want to keep an eye out to make sure that you're keeping the saw vertical. You have a pretty straight cut going down. You can do this with a young child, kind of with your hand over theirs, guiding them, helping them learn that it doesn't take a lot of force. You don't really want to exert a lot of force downward on the saw. Let the saw do the work. You just keep pulling it back and forth until it cuts through. There we go. That's the first cut. All right. Put this one aside. Now I need to make the two 21-inch cuts, and these need to be at exact lengths. So 2 pieces at 21 inches. So we'll measure those off. 21. Make the mark. Use the square. Put the line across. Set this up with the supports on either side. Clamp it again. And this is where I want to pay attention. I want this piece to be the one I'm keeping. I measured the 21 inches to my line. I want this piece to actually be 21. So any thickness or width of the saw blade should sit on the right-hand side of this line, so away from the piece that I'm keeping. So the rule of thumb is save the line. So you try to start the saw in such a way that it's just on the side of the line. This is the good part. The saw is on that side. And try to start the saw so that you can still see the line right at the edge of your blade as you do this. So instead of having the blade go right down the center of the line, the blade is going to the right-hand side. Okay, so I've got one of my 21-inch side pieces cut, set that aside. And we'll cut the second one. So this pile is all the pieces I need for the project. This is what I have left over for scrap. It's about 10 3/8 inches long. That's all that we're not using. So we'll save that for some future project of some sort. And we also need to cut the dowel to length. And for that, miter box is handy. There's actually a plan to build one of these in the book. I happen to have one in the shop. I just use that, but it's a nice, simple tool to make cutting dowels a little bit easier. It hooks on the front edge of the workbench, has slots already cut in it at 90 degrees and at 45 in both directions. So I need this dowel to be 21 inches long. So double checking that. Yeah. So we'll measure from this end. Happens, I looked at this before, and I can get my 21 inches before I get to the label, so I don't need to worry about getting that label off. By the way, a lot of these boards now come with a barcode label on them. I find that the citrus cleaners work pretty well to get the adhesive off of it. Doesn't peel off easily without permanently staining the wood. So I've got the line there. You take and clamp that in here. So if the line is right where the saw is going to go to the right of it again. Use the same saw. In the slot. Here you want the saw to be level when you get to the bottom. There's a piece of scrap wood in there. You cut all the way through. Okay. More piece of scrap, and now we have all of our parts cut. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is to drill the holes for the dowel to go through to make the handle. So we're going to take the two end pieces, which are 11 inches long. We're going to actually drill the hole through both of them simultaneously. So I only need to mark one of them. We're going to come down 1.5 inches near the center of this panel and mark that. Then find where the actual center is. This panel is 5.5 inches. Nominally 6-inch board is actually 5.5. So the middle of that is 2 3/4. So we're going to come over here and that 2 3/4, make a line this way, and I wasn't quite at the halfway mark with this mark, so I'm going to redo that so I get a nice X where the drill should go. Okay. Now we're going to put the bit into the bracing bit. This is a 1-inch diameter bit, so it's the same diameter as our dowel. So the dowel will just fit inside the hole. There it is. These have hexagonal machining on the shaft, and that will fit into the chuck of the bracing bit. So we hold it, tighten the chuck in there, and now we're going to stack these on top of each other, line them up so I can just drill through both pieces and get them both drilled at the same time. Put it on a piece of scrap wood so I can drill through into that. As we go through, it looks like this might be the same board I used when I did this the last time with Audrey's box. And we'll clamp these all together. So make sure they're lined up. Let's get a little bit of tension on there, and then I'll line it up. Okay. And the way these work, they have a, you can see that a starter that has it's a conical piece with screw type spirals on them before you get to the actual cutting blade. So you can put the point of this into the spot where you want it to start, and it will self-start pulling the blade down as this thing drives itself in, and then it will continue to pull the blade into the wood as long as there's wood below it. And that's why I wanted to put it into a new spot on my scrap board. So even when I get to the bottom, the starter continues to pull the blade down as we go. So let's, you know what, I'm going to readjust that camera so you can see this better. So I put the point into my marked X, try to get it straight up and down as best I can, hold it, put a little bit of pressure on it so that the starter bit gets going. And I've got a problem already. Trying to split the wood. That's not good. Oh, well. I'm going to keep going, hope that I get a good cut through the second board, and then I'm going to have to try to recut a new piece for the top. I've never had that happen to me before. There, so I was able to do the second one. I ended up having to take the first piece off, restarted it. I actually had to drill a small starter hole for the starter part of this bit to keep it from wanting to split. I could see that it was going to start to split even with the second one. So I drilled a hole about the size of the upper end of this starter screw. I don't know why that happened. I did not have the trouble with that way the first time I used this on Audrey's box, and there's certainly no instructions to suggest that. And now I'm going to have to find another piece of wood to replace this one that we won't be able to use. But we'll press on. All right, so what I ended up doing was using that scrap piece that we had left over that was a little bit shorter than the sides are supposed to be. So that one is 10 3/8, these are 11. So I cut the hole in that one, and I'm going to line it up with the good one, mark the line so I can cut these at the same length. You know, and if thinking in retrospect here, if I had made that first cut with a little bit less slop, I could have had an extra piece that would have been at least 11 inches long, and I wouldn't have had to make this modification. So when you do this, you make that first cut, instead of doing it at 44 inches, do it at 43, and you'll end up with an extra end panel in case you're in trouble. So I'm going to cut this off, and you'll have just a slightly shorter height on the sides, and so the handle will be a little bit closer to the box, but it'll work just fine. Now we have all of our parts ready for assembly. We're going to break for lunch and we're going to come back and put this thing together. All right, so we're back to assemble the box, and this is going to be done with just some woodworker's glue and nails. A pretty simple assembly process. Let's talk a little bit about the glues that you have to choose from. So Tite Bond is the brand that I typically buy, but there are many of these out there. And they have 3 different grades. So this one is their Tite Bond original wood glue. Only useful for things that are not going to be outdoors. It's not waterproof. Easy to work with. It's not all that different from white Elmer's glue. It's a little bit yellow. It's got some other resins in it. The Tite Bond 2 is meant for both interior and exterior projects, so it's got some water resistance to it. This one is designed to set a little bit faster than the Tite Bond 3, which is also an exterior waterproof grade. I prefer the slower setting version, so that's the one we're going to use for today's project. The first thing we're going to do is glue these end panels onto the bottom. And although it's not in the instructions, I actually find it helpful, especially with younger kids, to pre-drill at least part of the hole where the nail's going to go in here. It's not entirely necessary in pine, but that way you can set the nail into the pre-drilled hole and not have to worry about trying to hold onto the nail with one hand while hitting it with the other. So I'm going to put 3 of them in here, and I measured back 3/8 of an inch from the edge of the board. So it's in the middle of that 3/4 inch board that we're going into. Okay, so I've got those started. Now those should be able to hold on to these nails. Quite big enough to just push it in by hand, but I can do that. I used a slightly bigger bit and I could have just pushed them in there. Okay, this is supposed to go on to the end, the bottom. So we're going to take our glue, pop the head up. You do want to be careful with these glue bottles to make sure that every time when you're done with them, you push down. That will push a centerpiece up to the top and push out a little bit of excess glue. And then wipe that glue off right away. So it'll make it much easier to get started again, or use it again. And these have a broad tip. For design, you just put it flat on the wood, start squeezing it out, and wipe it down to make a line like that. The towel to wipe the tip off. There you go. All right. Now I'm going to take my board, line it up on here. And where it would be a little helpful to have a partner to help hold it in place. And we'll get it on. We'll get it started. I've switched to a slightly larger bit in the drill here, the second one. Push these in. Almost. Don't want them too loose. This will help guide the nail too. Again. Okay. That's ready. Got this clamp. You can't see it, but the piece I've already nailed on is sticking out toward me back here. I'm gonna make sure I put it up in the right direction. Obviously. Go along there. Tip. And of course, we wanted to make sure that the hole where the handle is going to go is away from the bottom. Careful lining these up. This is where you can be really helpful holding things in place while your young helper gets the pound nails. Space. All right, you have that much of it. All right, so now we're ready to put the sides on. So I've taken that part that we've already assembled, put it on its side. I don't want to run the glue up any higher than the side's going to go, so I'm going to make a little mark here to indicate where the glue should end. Okay. Put a line of glue around here. Put one of the side panels on there. And I didn't pre-drill the holes this time. I think I'll just try to do this, but you could if you're working with a youngster and want to make it a little easier. You need to make sure things stay lined up here as I get the nail driven through into the bottom piece. These are the 6-penny nails. This is your opportunity to try to straighten out these sides. Mine were bent out a little bit because my cut wasn't perfectly at right angles to the base piece, but since the glue hasn't fully set yet, I can do that. find glue oozing out, just wipe it off with a paper towel. Yeah, better drill these holes. This wood does seem to be prone to splitting. I'm starting to split a little bit. Here. Over and do the other side. One of these in so I can pull up on the drill. There we go. There's my elbow. That helps. Let's do one over here. There. Get those two in, and I can drill the rest of them more easily. there's our box. All it needs is a handle. So we take our dowel, slide it through, holes in it up just a smidge bigger than the dowel, which I find is usually the case with these. We are definitely going to re-drill this hole, perhaps even a smidge bigger than I've been doing. Just to keep the dowel handle from sliding out, really, we want it to pull up on the wood here, so we're not gluing this joint, we're just going to drive this in. There we have it, ready for finishing. So in a total work time of maybe 3 hours or so, we've gotten to this point, and we're going to finish it with a simple drying oil finish, and I'll demonstrate that in the next phase. I do suggest that when you're working with young children, break the project down into as many small segments of time as works for their attention span. If they start to get fidgety, quit, come back to it later. Most of these things are not time sensitive. You can leave them and come back to them. All right, I'm going to change into clothes I don't care about for the finishing work, so I don't get oil finish on my nice shirt. All right, so now it's time to finish our toolbox. And to do this, we're going to use a drying oil finish. Let me show you what we're doing here. So this is Danish oil finish, Hot Coast Danish oil finish. There are a variety of these. They're all called drying oils because they react with the oxygen in the air and to harden the oil finish after you've applied it. Linseed oil, tung oil, all work the same way. So I have a lot of this stuff around the house, so that's what we'll be using. Now, one thing you need to be careful of with these kinds of finishes is that these are the things that you've heard people talk about starting fires if you leave a pile of oily rags in the corner. It's not just any oil. If you did that with motor oil, nothing would happen. But if you do it with these things, these drying oil finishes, they will, or they can, because that chemical reaction with the air generates heat. And so if you've got a bunch of rags saturated with these things in a heap, that heat can build up in the center of that pile. This doesn't, it can't be released to the air around it easily enough and ignite itself. It's relatively rare, but it's possible. So what I do with these things is just take whatever rag I'm using to apply it and hang it up or hang it over something so it's just in a single layer to dry. And in the end, it will be hardened. When you pick it up, it's going to be more like a board, and then you'll have to throw it away. So this is a one-use thing. You want to find some old rags, old t-shirts are just perfect for this, and use a piece that's not any bigger than you need to because you're going to throw it away when you're done. But it's really easy to do. You open up the, like shake the finish first, which I've already done. Open it up, just saturate your rag with it, and start spreading it around on the wood. And it just kind of soaks in. It's not difficult at all. You don't leave brush marks all over. It's not a terribly waterproof finish, but it does provide some protection. And it looks nice. It brings out the grain of the wood. I don't usually stain projects when I make them. I like them in the color that the wood actually is. But it kind of just soaks into the corners, so I can get it in here without working too hard at it. just keep saturating it, wiping it on. And the instructions say to flood the surface with a brush or cloth, apply additional finish to any areas that absorb all of it, allow it to penetrate for half an hour, and then reapply and give it an additional 15 minutes of penetration, and then wipe any excess off that's still sitting there, and then it's ready to use 8 to 10 hours later than that. So it's really a very simple process. Wiping on here. Push that inside. Inside over here. Use plenty of it. Just make sure that all the wood gets a good amount soaked into it. And this end grain is pretty easy to see how you bring out the grain of the wood once this foil finish is soaked into it. Let's take a look at the other one too. You see that. See the part that I've done and the part that I haven't done. End grain absorbs a lot more than the bases of the wood. The handle, by the way, is hardwood. It's not fine like the rest of it. It's good. It's stiffer for lifting up the weight. But the piece that I forgot about in the directions, they said to use a 4-penny nail, so smaller nail than a 6-penny, and driving it into that because hardwood's even more prone to split. I forgot to do that. And you can see that I did split my dowel on the ends. If I was going to use a 6-penny nail, I should have drilled that hole all the way through into the dowel as well, but I forgot to do that. Let's do the bottom. Another nice thing about this finish compared to varnish is that it isn't sticky, and so you can even do all the sides of the thing and let it sit flat on the surface, and it still won't stick to it as it dries. With most varnishes, you'd have to prop it up, or so it's only touching on a narrow edge, or just do it in two phases. So you do one surface, let it dry, and then flip it over and do the other side. I suppose I should have sanded off this green mark on the end of the board for doing this, but it's only a toolbox, so I'm going to leave it. Didn't occur to me until now. Or I could have cut that edge off. I do this first coat in real time in the video so you can see just how quick this is. bit on the end of the dowel. There we go. All right. We'll wrap it up anyway so that all the surfaces can dry equally quickly. We'll do that. You can see it's all the longer it took to do the first coat. Come back in half an hour, do it again, and we'll be done. All right, thanks.